Hello, everybody.
We're live.
We're live.
We're back after 3 weeks of taking a break.
Yes, we took a little break. We had a little holiday break. It felt good, rejuvenating. Now we're ready to get back on the horse, on the Better Yourself 365 horse. I am Michael, and this is my wife, Tina.
Hello.
And we are Better Yourself 365, and we're a company that does really two things. One, we work with people on bettering their health. And the other is we work with people on bettering their relationships, and that could be a relationship with your partner or a relationship with your family, kids, and maybe even your dog, because who knows what kind of emotional cycle you are in with your dog right now after being off for 2 weeks.
He's funny starting off the year with his, we call them Papa jokes at home.
They're valuable. They carry a lot of weight around here. Yeah.
So today we're going to spend the next 15-20 minutes with you, and we are going to talk about how to better your relationship with your partner today. We thought we'd start off the year with just giving you a summary of 10 areas that matters the most in your relationship. You know, if you really want to nurture your relationship, and we're all about daily nurturing of your relationships, it matters where you decide to nurture that. So that's what we're going to summarize today, and hopefully you can relate to some of this, or you can pick one of these that you want to use for yourself, and we'll make time at the end of the live session today for any questions or comments that you might want to throw our way. Anytime you want to comment, if you're joining us at any point, say hi. So you want to get started?
Yes, so these are what we call our 10 secrets to lasting love.
Yeah, they're really habits, right, that we're trying to develop in our relationship to improve it on a constant basis.
Yeah, so these are things that we're working on all the time, sometimes many times a day, sometimes a couple of times a year. But we have broken it down into 10 categories, and we're going to start with number 10 and work ourselves back down to 1. And we do try to rank them in order of importance, but you don't have to see them exactly that way, but the smaller number ones definitely carry more weight.
And they're also the hardest to do on your own at times if it doesn't come naturally to you.
Yeah. That's why actually we developed a digital course for the final 4 of them because they're very difficult to do on your own. So we'll start with number 10, which is better yourself first. And better yourself first is just as it sounds, which is without us being good, our own self, it's very difficult to show up with our partner the best way that we can. So we want to be our best self when we are in our relationship. And this is a huge category, right? There's millions of books and lots of people talking about how to be your best self. And for us, it's such a critical piece when it comes to us being available to each other and responsive and emotionally tuned in. It's very difficult to do when you don't feel good, or when you have a lot of baggage from the past, or when you don't have good habits in your daily life, food, sleep, exercise, all the big stuff. And the better we are at getting ourselves in a good place, the more available I am to be the best person I can be in my relationship with Tina.
And number 9 is kind of linked to that. It's actually, to accept, we call it have realistic expectations, because we need to accept that there is going to be ups and downs in our relationship. It starts off always like we fall in love and it's this big thing. And then we have to nurture that to keep that love alive. It doesn't just stay that way on its own, but we have to accept that there's going to be ebbs and flows in our relationship. And we have to, when we know that and prepare for that, we can more easily move along with that without seeing it as a fatal sign if all of a sudden, we're having a little bit more harder times. It's about coming back out from that together. And it's based on better yourself first too, because often those ebbs and flows happen because one of the partners in the relationship, or sometimes both, if you're both going through grief or something like that, you start to not be your best self. You might be struggling more. So when, you might have lost a job, for example, or anything that might have happened, maybe you're struggling with some trauma from your past and it's coming up. any of those things that is bound to happen along the course of the relationship with your partner, you need to kind of cut them some slack in those times, right? And maybe not put so much pressure and be more supportive in those times. And it's tricky when you both need the support, right? It's like if you're both grieving or something like that. So those expectations, it can't be perfect. You have to not have the idea that a relationship shouldn't be hard, because it will be hard, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And moving down to number 8, so if you're taking notes of what we're writing on here, we're going to have some information at the bottom of this post, but maybe do some check marks. That's something I'm doing, or something my partner and I are doing, or this is an area we need to work on. So number 8 is have clear relationship rules and organize your daily life. It's a practical, it's a very practical habit. So in terms of delineating who's responsible for what, sometimes we fall into gender roles. These days, there's such a more openness to just doing what you like to do more, or what comes easiest for you, and finding a way for our family to work that way, and that's the way we work. Some of it are gender role based, probably, that they've been doing since the beginning of time.
He does the garbage.
I do the garbage. I also do the cleaning of the dishes, and Tina does things that maybe, some men out there might do, or whatever, in their relationship. So all it means is having conversations about it, though, to figure out the best way to do this, so that one person's not stuck doing this thing that they really don't like to do, and finding a way for people to actually be content with how things are divided up. And then we have to organize things. So that's staying aligned with each other with regard to our calendars and schedules, and who's going where, and how we're going to set things up, and who's picking up who, and all that kind of stuff, who's cooking dinner, all that kinds of thing. They require conversations.
Yeah.
So we're all about having regular conversations multiple times a day with each other, so that we're lined up. There's no surprises. Our expectations are similar to what we had waking up.
Because it's constant adjustments, right?
Always adjusting.
Yeah. And where are we, 7 now?
Yeah.
We wrote them in reverse there. 7 is talk about sex. Now, that might sound fun for some people. For some other people, it might be actually quite challenging if it's something they're not comfortable doing. But more rule of thumb is that if a couple talks about sex, they're more likely to have a better sexual connection. And if you don't talk about sex, and it becomes this taboo topic that can take over your relationship, and both of you might not feel comfortable with where it's at, not fulfilled, and nobody's really talking about it, or when you do, you get discouraged quickly in the conversation, right? So that is an important way to stay connected, and we do have a role to play to not ignore that part of our relationship and take action in it. So that's the other one.
Yeah, that's a good one. And notice it's talk about sex. It's not go have sex all the time, and maybe you want to do that. But we're
not opposed to that either.
Yeah, sure. But we're talking about it sometimes outside of the bedroom.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Number 6 is setting goals and dreaming together. And this is probably one of my favorite ones, conversations to have with Tina, where we just actually had a great conversation on New Year's Eve, which we do as one of our annual things, which we make a big budget for the year, and we talk about what we want and where we want to go, and all that stuff. So we're lining up our goals with each other. And what is it we want for? What do I want? What does she want? What do we want? What do we want for our family? So getting our goals out in the open and sharing them, and the more often you talk about them and write them down, research shows the more likely you are to actually keep going towards them. And maybe you have them on a giant poster in your bedroom, or maybe you have them written down somewhere in your calendar that you look at regularly. So those goals and the dreams that we do together, those are the big picture items. Where do we want to be in 5 years? We talk about that with our company. Where do we want to be in 5 years, and where do we want to be at the end of this year, and what are our goals, and
personal goals too,
not just
business or finances.
Yeah, connected to better yourself first,
and with the
back
kids,
to that stuff, and with the kids.
Yeah.
So those are great conversations to have when you're driving and with your kids, and we're always having these conversations of what do we want to achieve, what do we want to strive for.
And there's a direct link between couples that can do that and couples that can also build those rules that Michael was talking about earlier, and have those organize their lives, right? They're intrinsically connected. And they're really what keeps your connection alive as you grow and you move along, right? Because you keep talking about that growth and those new dreams that you have. Yeah. And the next one is number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Respect for each other. Yeah, so that's a biggie, actually. And, normally when we meet someone, we fall in love, respect is automatically in it, right? Respect is already there for the most part. But keeping it might be a little bit tricky if you're starting to have problems in the relationship. So one thing that I catch couples sometimes in my offices, or I recommend when I hear it, is to pay attention to the language you use about your partner. When you talk about your partner, how does it sound? Who do you talk to about your partner? And what do you say about them? Is it things that you would want them to hear? If not, then you're not really respecting your partner's privacy or respecting your partner as a person, right? I hear sometimes people, like kiddingly saying things, at least it sounds like a joke, but really there's some intention around that. There's the bitterness or the resentment that might have accumulated resonates there. They might not be always nice in how they talk about their partner. Just the fact that you talk about your partner in a not so nice light to anybody else other than a therapist is a sign that there might be some respect starting to get eroded there. And that's a true thing an important thing to nip in the butt if you start to see that in your relationship, because it just continues to get worse. Even not just what you say about your partner to others, but how do you talk to them, what comes out of your mouth, right? And if you've seen that there's been changes in that, or you're hearing things that you're more and more uncomfortable from your partner telling you, right? There's a sign there. Respect is something that you have to consciously pay attention to, right?
No, it's good. Okay, and number 4 is prioritize your relationship.
A lot of people hear about that one, right? This is not a new one, but we don't all do it.
But it's that practice of it. It's the daily practice. It's the building the habits, the little habits, the big habits. So little habits like, when you walk by your partner, you just give them a little touch, and that lets them know that you care for them. Maybe that's their love language is, physical touch. Or you always kiss them goodnight, or you always say goodbye, or you text them through the day, and it lets them know that they're important to you and that this
you're thinking
matters.
of them. Yeah.
And then there are bigger things like, creating opportunities to spend time together, maybe when it's difficult. So not just having dinner each night, but, take initiative, especially you men out there. I know what it's like. Take initiative. Create an opportunity to take your partner out for something special, whether it's dinner or whatever, even taking them out for a coffee, creating that opportunity to have one-on-one conversation that's where your attention is undivided, where it's just you and them talking about things that matter. We like to do bats on Friday night, and we'll just do a check-in. How are you? Because our how each other is really important to us, so we have to prioritize that time. We have 2 teenage boys. We're super busy, so we have to make a point of doing it. It doesn't just naturally come. If we just went with the natural ebb and flow of life, we'd never spend time together. So it's really important for us to prioritize that time together. And we love what it teaches our kids. It teaches them that when you have a partner, you prioritize them just as much as you prioritize anybody else, maybe more. And we let them see how important we are to each other. And we believe that it's the cornerstone to our family's happiness. So it's really important.
It just makes me giggle because our son, when there was one week we didn't have our date night, and our son was like, "Aren't you guys having your date night?" So it's been a habit that they've noticed. So the third one is about your fights or your arguments or lack of arguments. Understanding that a bit better and not getting caught in it. So that's a big thing that we need to nurture. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the right place. A big thing we need to nurture is, how we interact with each other when we are upset or when we are disappointed or not content with something. How do you communicate? And you hear a lot of people say, we need help with the communication. Often when couples come into my office, that's what I hear. Communication is a big thing. And sometimes if they don't fight, right? You hear people say, "Oh, we don't fight," and that's not necessarily a better situation, because often when you don't fight at all, you never have arguments, then it could mean that you're more kind of disconnected, right? Every couple, it's very normal that every couple at some point will have some sort of argument. It may not happen very often, but it will. And if there's nothing there, it means that you probably hold a lot of stuff in. And that creates a bad negative communication as well. So part of nurturing your relationship is to recognize what is your communication pattern, and are you stuck in a negative place? And if so, it's very important that you learn how to step out of that cycle that you have when you're trying to interact and create something healthier, because that negative pattern is just going to get worse and worse if you can't see it and learn how to step out of it. Now, that's the part that's often not easy to do on your own, because when we're in it, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
We were in a negative pattern for a couple of years, and even as therapists, we weren't able to come out of it. So, it took a while for us to work at this. And that's why often couples need help with that. But there is a way to do that, and it is very important to do that. Yeah. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and part of that is, unhooking from that conflict and cycle that you're in. Part of it involves...
Or the opposite, or no interaction.
Or, so
engaging more.
Once you guys get together, you might start arguing. You might have arguments if you start interacting more like that. And one of the key pieces for us has always been an ability to repair
that's
after
the second
argument.
one.
And so
that's important.
Number 2.
Yeah.
So that's the second last habit of this 10 is always repair. And there are lots of couples that will go and say sorry, and then they're done. That's it. That's all that requires.
It's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Because some don't do that.
But it's the beginning of the repair. It's not the end of the repair.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot about repairing. I think Tina was just naturally better at it, and she's been doing couples therapy a lot longer than me. So I had to learn mine. And actually, there are some steps to follow now. I think I've committed them to memory so that when it happens, there's actually a preparation before you go repair, thinking about it a little bit rather than have an argument, leaving, and then going and looking on your phone. Then are you ready to say sorry? And then you come back and you go, sorry too, I love you, bye. That's not a true repair, because there's a lot of unspoken words and unfinished emotions that have not been processed to the point where there's nothing left at the end.
Or I see also couples repair through sex, so without words, but just reconnecting through sex, which feels kind of like a repair because there's a connection, but still there's no understanding of what happened and what was at the deeper root of that. What were the needs not being met? What was the feeling there that's not been acknowledged that needs to be validated? Yeah. All that happens in the repair.
Yeah. And so you'll reduce the tension, but you won't have dealt with the issue, which is the core emotional issue. So there's some hurt left over, needs to be processed. And what I kind of talk about it like it's if we don't properly deal with that emotions that are left over, it creates a brick.
Right.
And that brick's between us. And the next time we have a fight, I might pick that brick up and throw it at her and say, well, remember last time?
And it hurts.
Yeah. And if we have too many of those bricks, it's like a wall between us. Yeah. So that's my metaphor of it. So we need to zap those bricks by doing a proper repair. And so it involves more than saying sorry. It involves more than having sex. It actually involves having a conversation where you get to the heart and soul of what each person was experiencing, and we put it to rest at the end so that when it's done, and the next time we get together, there's no brick.
And that leads us to number 1. The number 1 thing that we all need to get better at doing and nurturing in our relationship is actually tuning in emotionally to our own feelings and needs, because often a lot of time people have a hard time doing that, right? Especially if that wasn't really shown to you as a kid growing up, or it wasn't acceptable that you had feelings other than happiness growing up. People start to try to shut off their feelings and avoid feeling. And that's a real problem, creates a real problem in relationships because resentment builds up. And if we're not letting it, like understanding really what's happening for us and communicating that to our partner, because that's the other thing. We have to tune in and express talk openly. Basically, earlier when I talked about respect and I talked about if you notice yourself talking to others about your partner, anything that you talk to somebody else about your partner, it's not them you should be talking about, it's to your partner. And if there's some difficulties in doing that, then that's when you get help, because you can't have a relationship holding in things that are important to you. Mm-hmm. And if you always get into an argument when you try to bring up stuff, then you really need to get help. And that's really like the last 3 ones: understanding your fights, always repairing, and talking openly and tuning in. Those 3 things are the most challenging for people to have on their own. And that's why we developed the taking charge of your relationship training, because that's what it focuses on. Mm-hmm. Those 3 things to really make you both understand what's going on for each of you, and to come together as a couple to break through that pattern, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, when you're doing counseling, you're going into even more deeper into that if you need extra help.
Yeah, and it can be learned. There's skills that can be learned.
Absolutely.
There are habits that can be learned. I know I've learned a lot about it. You just through our work together and through learning through Tina and my relationship with her. They can definitely be learned by men and women and anybody in a relationship. If you want to improve your relationship, it's going to be hard. It's going to be risky. But these habits are worth spending your time and energy on with your partner.
Absolutely. So you want to give them a challenge?
Yeah, so the challenge is from 10 down to 1, choose one of those 10 habits and have a conversation with your partner about the one that you think maybe you need some work on. And see if you can get their buy-in, if they're not watching this with you, and see if that's something that you guys can set a goal for 2022. Maybe that's, in terms of setting goals and dreaming together, that would be a great goal, is to choose one of those and spend some time together working on improving that area of your relationship.
Now, if you're not sure how to go about doing that, that's where a couple of our resources can be helpful for you. One is free, and it's actually, we took those 10 areas, those 10 habits to develop and the skills to learn. We took these 10 that we talked about today and went extensively giving you examples, giving you tips and strategies on how to start applying those in your own relationship. And that's on our website. Actually, I put a link in the description here. It's called The 10 Secrets to Lasting Love, and you can access that for free. It's a 90-minute video, so it's pretty extensive. A real great tool to watch with your partner, or even on your own if you can't bring your partner to watch it, and then bring in some ideas and some suggestions. But really great resource that we have available for you for free. And the other one, if you're really struggling with the last 3 that we talked about, understanding your fights, always repairing, and talking openly and tuning in, our digital training for couples is a 4-module training. So that 90-minute video is part of it, but it's just one little chunk of a whole bunch of depth that you'll get in that training. And it's combined, like there's videos and exercises you do as a couple. And right now it's on sale up until January 7th, 55% off. It's a holiday sale. So if you want to get the new year start off on the right path, again, the link is in the description, and you can also find it on our website.
Okay, that's it. Listen, enjoy the rest of your holiday break.
Yes.
And have an awesome 2022. And I hope you keep tuning into our Facebook Lives every 2 weeks.
Yes, because, we know that 2022 is going to be another challenge with COVID and all that. So it's even more important than ever to try to live as healthy as possible and to lovefully surround us with good relationships. So we're here to help you with that.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, and we'll stay behind if anybody has questions or comments.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.